The candidates forum will be somewhat abbreviated because one of the declared candidates was not able to be here because she only got the nomination last week and didn't have enough time to plan to be here. And that's Angie Carpenter, of course. We're very glad that Steve Bellone, who is presently the supervisor of the town of Babylon and is seeking election to Suffolk County Supervisor, is here. And to question and interact with Steve Bellone, we're also happy to have Serge Martinez, Associate Clinical Professor of Law at Hofstra University. When he's not providing advice to the Hagedorn Foundation, Serge supervises law students who provide legal assistance to nonprofits, community-based organizations, and micro-enterprises in low-income communities in and around Nassau County. Before coming to Hofstra, Serge was part of the community development project of the Urban Justice Center in New York City. Please welcome Serge Martinez and Steve Bellone.
Okay, so apparently there's some feedback issues with this mic, so let me know if you're having trouble. And if you can't hear me, just move. No, I guess you can't move. The questions that I'm asking today they've been developed by several people with the Long Island Immigrant Alliance had some serious input in the development. I've taken my professorial liberties in the phrasing, but other than that, you should recognize them. And I have also been asked to, as Amy said, we invited Angie Carpenter, but she couldn't make it. So I'm going to start with a softball. So you want to come closer?
Sure.
We'll trade off.
Sounds good.
So what would you consider a top priority for the next Suffolk County Executive?
Sure. Top priority, we have first of all, it's wonderful to be here. I thank the Hagedorn Foundation. I want to thank Amy Hagedorn and all the wonderful staff here for what you do and what the work that you are doing to help move our region towards a more just place. So thank you for that work. We face many challenges in our region. County government, quite frankly, has been mismanaged. We have a financial situation which is in some respects worse than in Nassau County. We have a $180 million structural deficit. Our debt's been doubled in the last 8 years. And on a regional level, we continue to lose young people at record rates. We're not creating enough high-paying jobs for a sustainable economy here. We don't have enough diversity of housing and affordable housing in our region to have a sustainable economy. And all of these issues are sort of interrelated and connected with one another and feeding off of one another. And we need to address them in a comprehensive way. On top of that, I would say that law enforcement in the county has been mismanaged, and the focus for me for law enforcement needs to be on strengthening communities and helping communities achieve their quality of life objectives, all communities throughout the county. And unfortunately, I think law enforcement has been utilized in a way to promote a political agenda and a personal political agenda. And while that's terrible in terms of the management of any agency in government, particularly when you're dealing with the agency that involves the protection of citizens and families and children in our communities, to me that's beyond the pale. So those are the big challenges I think we face.
Okay, since you brought it up, let's talk about the law enforcement or the police in Suffolk County. I mean, community police relations, as you know, have suffered in recent years. There have been several deaths through There have been several deaths due to using tasers. The police have been accused of not investigating hate crimes and other attacks on immigrants and minority communities. So how would you encourage a better connection between police and the community?
Hi. That's okay. I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to say hello. Well, I think there's a few different things to say there. I'll step back a little bit.
You have time to think.
Yeah, I'm not stalling. Try it now? Okay. I think, there are a few things to say about that. One, as a town supervisor, I have been very aware of the importance of policing and doing the right kind of law enforcement in terms of strengthening our local communities and our downtowns, in terms of growing our downtowns and creating the kind of opportunities for housing and some of the things I talked about. Unless the law enforcement community is working in direct contact with the community and on these particular issues, you're not going to be able to make progress in improving the quality of life in your community, improving the economy, growing the economy in our downtown. So I understand that as town supervisor. And one of the things that particularly excites me about being county executive, there are some things that do not, but one of those that do is the opportunity to work with law enforcement and to lead law enforcement in a direction that I think we need to go. And that is much more focus on community policing. I think that has been something that has been a failing that we have not done nearly enough of. You can't you can't establish the kind of relationship or gather the kind of intelligence that you need to actually fight the crimes and things that are hurting our communities if you're not interacting constantly with the community. So I look forward to doing that. On a broader level, what I would say, again, about law enforcement is we had a school in Huntington Station that closed down because of law enforcement issues. That should never happen in this county. That is a disgrace. And I think part of the problem is that we have an administration currently that when you see what's happening in Huntington Station and communities like it across our county, they're viewed as media problems or perception problems that you have to attack through the media by announcing new initiatives and holding press conferences. I look at what is happening in Huntington Station and communities across the county, and I view them as actual problems that need to be solved by the application of resources and effort and time and energy. And I start from this premise always. It's sort of what we started with in our work on Wine Edge, and that is that the status quo is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. Not that we're going to work on the problem, not that we're going to try some things or give it our best effort. That the status quo is unacceptable. And what that means, I think, from that jumping point, if you start from there, it says that you're going to put the resources and the time and the energy that is needed to get the job done. We need to eradicate gangs in this county. That's a real problem, right? That is hurting our communities, hurting real people. That is not a perception problem. It is not a media problem. Hate crimes. If you looked at some of the statistics, you would think there's not an issue here in Suffolk County. Well, I can tell you this. If I am county executive, not only will we be reporting accurately what hate crimes are, we will be putting forward an agenda to try to address those crimes, to try to solve those crimes, to try to prevent those crimes in the future. by working with the community and working with organizations. So I think that's a fundamental difference that I have right now in terms of the approach that I would use with law enforcement. And in terms of tasers, I've heard this as an issue. I can honestly say I've not been that familiar. There are a number of issues that I'm not going to be intimately familiar with at this point, but I will. And that's certainly something I would order a review of, for sure.
Thank you. So right now, as I'm sure you're aware, a big issue on everyone's mind is jobs, the economy, economic development. So what is your plan for economic development with the county, and how will it involve the diverse communities on Long Island, particularly immigrant communities?
Sure. Well, first I start from the premise that we cannot afford, as a nation, to allow communities like Wyandotte to allow whole segments of our population to be outside the economic rise in a community. In fact, the global economy demands today that we make sure as a government that we do everything we can to make sure that every citizen has the opportunity to achieve their maximum potential. So this morning I was at a press conference. Lisa Tyson was with me from the Long Island Progressive Coalition. We've worked with Lisa on immigration issues. And we're working with her on green jobs. And we created a program back in 2008 called the Long Island Green Homes Program. And that program was to allow residents to retrofit their homes. But right from the start, and we've been to many conferences where we've talked about this issue about creating jobs that give real opportunities and career opportunities. And a lot of times the focus is on how we do that end of it. And we would always say at the conferences, well, the first thing we've got to focus on is creating the jobs. Because if you don't create the jobs, you don't have to worry about anyone filling them because they're not there. So in Babylon, we have focused on job creation. And we have literally created real green jobs. Through our program, about 50 jobs have been created. And we're working on a pilot program right now with LIUNA, Local 10, to make sure that this developing sector of our economy is going to be one in which people from all communities have access to and have career opportunities in. And one of the ways we've been doing that is in Wyandotte, we opened a resource center. As we've been working on this project, I opened it in 2009, about 2 years ahead of where I felt we would be today, where we are at the implementation stage of the revitalization. We're about 10 years into the project overall. And the reason I did that was, and by the way, we opened it on the site of the old McDonald's. The McDonald's closed down. We believe it's the only McDonald's in the history of McDonald's that couldn't make it. And, people in the community were rightfully upset. I sort of only pretended to be upset. I was actually secretly very happy that it closed down because it's a lot cheaper to buy a closed McDonald's than it is to buy an open McDonald's. And we bought that McDonald's like we bought many of the properties around the train station. For instance, like the old KFC that's been boarded up for 20 years, because we wanted to make sure, as we make these investments in the community, the rise in values that are coming are going back into the community, into the project, rather to landowners who have been contributing nothing to the community. And so we did that, and we opened the Resource Center on that site in 2009 because we said the development has to the maximum extent possible, benefit the existing residents of Wyandotte. And therefore, the development will create new housing, new job opportunities, expansion of our tax base. That will benefit a center for the community. That will benefit everyone. But we need to go beyond that. And so we said we're not going to have a situation in Wyandotte that has happened to communities across our region, across the country, in fact, where promises have been made and unfulfilled. We're not going to have a developer come in and say, I looked around the community and I tried to find somebody that was qualified or had the skills to do this work, and we couldn't find anyone. That's not going to happen here because we're training the residents ourselves, and when we select a developer, going to provide them with the residents who are pre-apprentice trained and ready to take on these jobs and have careers. And in fact, in terms of my commitment on this issue and the importance of sort of the general question that you raised there, we hired, and I suspect some of you have heard this before, but we have hired every one of the individuals that have been in our training program through the Resource Center in seasonal part-time jobs, seasonal, their full-time hours, so that they can feed their families and feed themselves while they're trying to turn their lives around. And we do a background check on every employee in the town of Babylon that goes to, that seeks employment. And 90% of the individuals in our training program were rejected for employment with the town. The report came across my desk from the town attorney. And so I called the town attorney down in my office and I explained that we would be hiring every single one of them. And this is what I told him, essentially. He's a little more conservative than me. I explained this to him. And I said, what chance does an individual have in our society? If they've paid their debt to society, they are out trying to turn their lives around in a government program, and the government is not willing to give them a part-time or seasonal job. What possible chance do they have to turn their lives around? And the answer is, there is no chance and there is no choice. And that is why so many people end up right back into the system, right back on drugs. You have to address these problems in a comprehensive way. And if you don't do that, you're going to have people going right back in. And even if you do, you're not going to be able to give the... You're not going to have a success story in every case. But it's the way that you can make this happen. And if you care about it, you can make it happen. By the way, I think things like Wyandotte are very possible. People still today say to me, "No, this is never going to happen. You're never going to be able to revitalize a community like Wyandotte." And it's 10 years, and I've believed from day one that we were going to do it, because from day one we said it's unacceptable and we're going to make it happen, and we're going to do everything we have to do to make it happen. We're breaking ground on sewers in Wyandotte as we speak. The sewer line will run up 2 miles into the downtown to make economic development a reality. We're paying for that ourselves as a town because it's an important investment in the community. But it can happen, and it can happen anywhere, and it can be done anywhere. The reason it doesn't happen is because it's hard. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy and dedication and time and perseverance. And quite frankly, our political system today is not set up for this kind of long-term thinking and planning. It's all about what's going to help me in the next election cycle or in the next 2 years. And quite frankly, you can't get anything done of significance or import in 2 years. And so I've tried to do that in Babylon, and it's an approach that I would like to bring to Suffolk County. I think it's what we need to create a long-term sustainable future for our county. Sorry, that was all. It was.
So I'm going to talk now about children for a minute. One of the programs that has been found to be very helpful with children in low-income communities whose parents are teens or unemployed or have mental health, substance abuse issues, or other reasons for being low income, have been home visitation programs. They are available, but not as widespread as we would like, not available to everybody. So how will you address that, and what will you do to make that more available to everybody who needs those services?
Again, I would say this is an issue that I am not intimately familiar with in terms of the services that are being provided. It's something I am very interested in, though. I think home visitation in general is a lot more cost-effective way to deliver services and to make the kind of progress that we need to do as a society. In Wyandotte, we worked with a not-for-profit who's working with us in the Resource Center to visit every home in the town of Babylon, in the hamlet of Wyandotte. I hired canvassers over the summer to visit every single house in Wyandotte to identify who's renting versus who's homeowners, so we could help renters become homeowners in the community. And we also knocked on those doors to identify who has children below preschool age, because we run a program out of the Resource Center to help parents who have newborns to 3-year-old with the things they need to make sure that their children are not behind or way behind when they're entering school. So it's an issue that I care about. The particulars of it, the details of it, I am not as familiar with, but I look forward to having a greater understanding of the kind of services that are being provided. And to give you a sense of my approach as well, when we were opening the Resource Center, I hired an executive director of the Resource Center a year before we ever had a Resource Center. And the reason for that was I said, I want you to go out into the region and just identify the existing programs that are out there and identify programs that we think could help residents in Wyandotte, and let's partner with and let's work with those programs. I'm a big believer in not reinventing the wheel. Existing programs that are out there that are good and that are achieving positive results, we should work to buttress and to support and to reinforce rather than trying to create whole new initiatives. So that's the kind of approach I would take.
Excuse me. So, as you know, there's been considerable criticism about the tone and content of the rhetoric and public debate in Suffolk County vis-a-vis immigrants, whether that's been in public discussion, proposed and enacted legislation. So how do you change the tone of the discussion, and what sort of leadership will you provide to make those changes?
Well, not to simplify it too much, but I think you change the tone by changing the tone. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I think that public officials have almost a solemn obligation, I would say, I believe, to not only work to bring people together, but to work to calm things down. That is our role. That is part of our role. And that, I think, is leadership. Is to work to, when passions run high, to work to calm those down. Unfortunately, I think there are politicians who view situations like immigration as an opportunity to raise their political prospects. And I think it is incredibly shameful that anyone would exploit people and vilify people and in effect harm whole communities for their own political advantage. So what I would do as county executive is what I have done as town supervisor. Where there are issues, where there are situations, I would communicate with people. As I said, I've had great conversations certainly with the Hagedorn Foundation, with the Long Island Progressive Coalition on this issue. And any other group that was interested in talking about this issue. So I would have open lines of communication. And I would also seek out opportunities to highlight the many ways in which our communities, and particularly immigrant communities, are contributing to our county and our region. Find those great examples, because there are a ton of them out there, and find opportunities to highlight those. So I think those are the ways that I would work to change the tone. Yes. What time is it? 4:29. Oh. A couple more minutes.
Okay. Well, we've pretty much covered this. Okay. Yeah, I can answer another question. Okay. Let me ask you.
Okay, we can talk about that.
Okay. Sorry. So another program that's really been useful and been effective, in Suffolk County has been the Suffolk County Mobile Outreach Parent-Child Home Program that provides education to low-income families and follows them around the county to wherever they might be. It's the only program in the county that can do that, but it's not funded by Suffolk County. It's funded by outside sources. What will the county do to increase its funding and make that available to everybody?
So I can't say specifically about that particular program, but the concept of the program is a wonderful concept. I think it's where we need to go. I need to speak with the organizations that are actually participating in those programs and operating those programs. But we do need to do that. We do need to be innovative about how we're attacking these problems and approaching these problems. And the idea of going out into communities and following the kids. And what I think needs to happen is we need to be working across agencies in the county, because there are multiple agencies that deal with kids in the county. And we have to make sure that the resources that we're applying to helping families and children in our county are being most effectively utilized. In the town of Babylon, we've broken down. What I like to say is we care about government in Babylon. Because when I say that, I mean some people care about the stuff that is out in the public and that the public sees. But quite frankly, 90% of what government does is not out there in the public. It's sort of beneath the surface. And so if you don't really care about government and how it operates, you don't care about 90% of what we do. And that's a real problem. And in Babylon, we've gone into every agency and every department, and we've broken down every function of what they do into its component parts. And I'm going to take that concept and bring it to Suffolk County. And when it comes to the welfare of children and kids, it's about taking all these different agencies and figuring out how these agencies can now coordinate and work together in a way that will attack the problems that our families and our kids are facing, as opposed to dealing with specific issues. Because again, I think when you focus on these issues in a comprehensive manner, you have a chance at success. And I analogize it to Wyandanch in the past. There was an effort in the 1990s to build a supermarket in Wyandanch. And it was a Herculean effort to bring together federal, state, county, town resources, not-for-profit organizations, financial institutions, to bring this supermarket to Wyandanch. And it happened after a number of years of effort. And it was a great thing to have the supermarket brought there. But fundamentally, it didn't do anything to change the economic trajectory of that community. So the approach we've taken since 2002 is, let's work on tackling all the problems in a similar way to the approach of the Hagedorn Foundation and the work of the groups here, attacking these problems in a comprehensive way so that you change the structure. You do something that I think is in effect game-changing. So, again, it's a program I'm very much interested in. I would love to talk to the organizations who are running those programs. But as a county, what I'll work to do is to identify the resources we're currently applying into families and kids, how those resources can be applied together, and how we can leverage the work of not-for-profits. And again, instead of reinventing the wheel, support and buttress and reinforce groups that are already doing the work that needs to be done.
I think that's all the time we have for. He has to go. I can stay all day and take questions, though. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.